Chat. If you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in a jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when me and Seif used to sneak in every concert door. Now I got my feet in. Every day is Get Friday, no weekend.
Good night. Welcome back to your favorite live sports show, not named JT and the Dawn. That's right, is indeed hashtag this just in. And if you've seen the title, then you know we are here for draft night. Like what else? Like the biggest questions surrounding the draft. So for the biggest questions, I have to bring the biggest cast. First, I had to bring back Payton Doyle and the aforementioned JT and the Dawn. So guys, what's up? How y'all been?
Good, man. Thanks for having us back on, man.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of the draft, before we get into that, big Packers fan here. So we have to talk about the news first, and I'll get y'all guys' feelings about this. But the trade that we've all been waiting for, at least all of us in Wisconsin, is finally done. Aaron Rodgers has been sent to New York like his predecessor, Brett Favre. There has been, a first-round swap. So let's go through the trade first. The Jets get the Packers number 15 overall first-round pick, including also, obviously, Aaron Rodgers. We can go deeper on, but no, the Packers get to be the 13th overall pick, a second-round pick, a later pick, and next year's second-round pick. If Aaron Rodgers plays 65% of the snaps, that is a conditional, and that will move up to first. So, gentlemen, just chime in very quickly. Did the Packers get enough compensation for Aaron Rodgers? Don't all jump at once, right?
I guess I'll go first. They got rid of the Devin Booker of the NFL. I like it. You give Jordan Love a shot. Let's get their franchise quarterback. I think it's a win-win for both teams.
Payton?
It's the Packers had to move on. And I remember this 3 years ago. I was on the draft show the year that Trevor Lawrence got drafted. And we had the same discussion about the Aaron Rodgers situation going on. And is he going to play? And is he going to retire? What's going to happen? You can't have that question mark about your franchise guy year in, year out as an organization. You need to know, are you completely in the door, or is 1 foot in and 1 foot out? And it always felt like with Rodgers, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So I would say I agree with JT. It's a win-win for both sides. The Packers get that trouble off their hands, and the Jets get a chance to maybe be relevant.
Yeah, I think Payton's right. It definitely was time to move on, so you had to make the deal. In terms of the compensation, because that's really what you're concerned, Justin, as a Packers fan. Like, all right, great, he's out of here, but what did we get in return? Did we just give him up for a bag of peanuts, or did we get something that we can use? So when you break it down, it's really a second-round pick this year, because you're only moving up 2 spots in the first round. So
hold on, there are draft grades at these spots, and apparently moving from 15 to 13 does carry high value.
All right, great, but you better hit on that pick. So you better have a heck of a scouting department if it's 2 picks. That's all I'm saying. So it's really a second-round pick this year, and let's presume he's got to play more than 65% of the snaps next year, because if he doesn't, that means either he was injured or something really went wrong in New York, and either way, you're still coming out on top. But let's presume he does the 65% snaps, second-round pick this year, first-round pick next year for a guy that's how old, Justin? 39? I don't even know. So that's a great steal in terms of the Packers. My concern for the Packers is, did they restructure his deal before this trade? Because if you didn't, you've got to eat $40.3 million in dead cap. I'm sorry, Justin. That's a huge part of the deal. So, and you need at least 24 hours before you restructure a deal to when you can trade a guy. So hopefully they restructured his deal 24 hours ago and made the deal today if it is official. So that's my concern is, did you rework the deal? If you did, I think it's a pretty good haul for Green Bay for a 39-year-old guy that doesn't even want to be there.
So to answer your question, we don't know. General Manager Brian Gutekunst, I want to say like 10 minutes after Adam Schefter broke the news, he did have a live press conference. But because obviously Aaron hasn't done a physical as yet, he didn't go into depth about it. So we can only hope that the deal was restructured. But as far as we know, that is a no. So we don't really want to talk about that dead cat. What we do want to talk about first is get into it, guys, at the top of the draft. And a lot of us have assumed since Carolina traded all that draft capital that they were targeting Bryce Young or at least a quarterback. So, Jimmy, I'm going to start with you. The talk is that it is Bryce Young. So, should Bryce Young go number 1 overall, or is his very small stature a legitimate concern?
All right, so you're asking me 2 questions. So let's address the size thing first, because me and Don actually battled about this about a couple months ago. So before he went to the combine and weighed in, I was concerned about the size, because if you look at the numbers, I think there was only like 9 guys in NFL history that had played and started at that size that they thought Bryce Young was. I think it was smaller than 5'9", under 195 pounds. But then he came to the combine. He was a lot bigger than people thought. So that kind of eased my worries about him and his size at the NFL level. But as far as should he go number 1, absolutely. He's the top quarterback in the draft. Like, he's been the top quarterback in college football. Like, look what he's done at Bama. Like, everything about him is elite. Like, the way he processes the game is playing under pressure. Like, he just understands everything. Everything that he does well is things you can't coach. And that's what you want in a quarterback. That's what you want in a franchise quarterback. That's what you want at a guy that you're trading up to get at number 1. And he's done it at Bama with a Bama team that hasn't been Bama-like with talent. Like, it's not like he was playing with the same weapons that Tua had, where he had like 4 first-round receivers and 2 first-round running backs. Like, these Bama teams have not been as good as the Bama teams of the past, which is why they're not getting to the national championship. So he's doing all this by himself, and he's really similar to Deshaun Watson to me. Like, I just think they just process the game the same way. It's very fast. It's a natural feel. They just understand and they can make plays, man. So I'll talk about Bryce Young, who won for me in this draft.
Sorry, Payton, I have to let Don jump in here because I see Don shaking his
head.
Yeah.
He's shaking his head because go ahead. Talk about your guy who you think is the best quarterback in this draft.
No, we'll get to that.
Give him your compliment.
That's the next.
So Payton, you and I will sit down and drink. We'll drink some water right now. So yeah. Go right ahead.
Justin, he's already making excuses in case Bryce Young doesn't succeed to say, well, there's not a lot of talent around him. You were at Alabama and you didn't win. Oh, but the talent's not as good in Alabama as it has been. Well, Tua won with it, but now you're saying
he won with 4 first-round receivers.
Okay, but it's not like he has no talent around him. He still had the best talent around him in college football. Let me finish.
Since you're so great, who was Alabama's wide receiver 1 this year?
Let me finish. On top of that, you say he's so great, clearly the best quarterback. Well, then make everyone better. Maybe Mac Jones and Tua made those guys better. Did we know Jameson Williams before? Like, he came in, Bryce had him. He couldn't win with Jameson Williams, right? Mac Jones helped some of those guys. Where did Bryce help guys? Did he help the line? Did he help the running backs? So to get back to the question, though, like, yeah, he can go number 1 and maybe it pans out. Of course, he has all the abilities. But at the end of the day, you got to be concerned about that size. He's 5'10", 194. And I've told JT this on our show. Justin, I am 5'10", 190 on a good day.
No, we're not doing this again.
I'm not biting
We're
one
not doing
though.
this again. It's already been confirmed. 5'6",
No, I am not.
It's already been confirmed. And then second of all, Justin, I don't even know why he's going down this path to make his quarterback, who he thinks is the GOAT in this draft, look good when you're already on film saying that Bryce Young size and that you do think he is the best quarterback in this draft, but now you're singing a different tune.
I never said he was.
Hold on. I'm going to before I let y'all go back and forth, I'll let Payton go and then let y'all go back and forth. Payton.
What I have to say is not nearly as interesting as this debate. Basically, I'm the happy middle. Listen, Bryce Young is tiny. He's small, and I was concerned. I do feel like it's less about the height for me and more about just his frame and the size of his body overall. I feel like a lot of that weigh-in in the combine and at his pro day was water, like just trying to get that weight up to boost his draft rating. We see athletes do that all the time. I remember Leonard Fournette was like a lot of water weight, and then he ended up actually, gaining a lot of weight in the NFL. But
and keeping that water weight on.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like in Bryce Young's case, he's a little bit slighter. Everyone brings up the Kyler Murray comparison because their combine measurables are about the exact same. But Kyler Murray uses his legs more, and also he's just it doesn't take a rocket science to trust your two eyes. You can see that Kyler Murray is just a stronger built guy than Bryce Young is. So I would say yes, I'm a little bit concerned. But with this interesting draft class, every rose has its thorn in this quarterback class. It's true. For every quarterback that looks good, they also look really bad at times. They have their one thing about them that is just not great. And I feel like in terms of his arm talent and playing at Alabama, it gives him the nod to be the number one overall pick.
You said it there, where all the quarterbacks, they have their downside. When the downside is something you cannot fix as a coaching staff, as an organization, and then on top of that, that may lead him to not being available. They all say the greatest ability is availability. This is the NFL, man. He's not being chased down by, 200-pound edge rushers in high school or 250-pound linemen from, University of Alabama. Put whatever other name you want to put in there after it. It's one of their branch colleges. Like, that's a Division II team. Like, he's not being chased down by those guys. He's being
He's being chased down by future first rounders at Georgia and going toe to toe with them. Like,
in Alabama,
he played in the most physical league in college football. He played in the NFL G League and survived.
So Don, then if not, and I'm not disagreeing with you or even agreeing, but if not Bryce Young number one, then who do you have?
CJ Stroud.
Oh, we're gonna. I'll save that.
Just one thing, because I didn't get to bring this up before. And we're talking about his size and everything. Like, you got to be worried about CJ Stroud too, because if we're looking at body mass index, Bryce Young has a higher BMI than CJ Stroud does. So, like, it's like, because Bryce Young is short, he's so skinny, but like CJ Stroud is skinny too. So, is his size not a concern? Oh, because he's tall?
Is it really though?
Like, it's not a concern. Doesn't matter what you are. Like, if you're gonna get broken up, you're gonna get broken up. Doesn't matter if I'm 6'6" or 5'10". Like, it's the same thing.
I'm glad Payton brought up this point, right? Because I'll chime in quickly. Both things can be true at the same time. So I do believe that Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this draft, and I do think the size concerns are legit. Simply because when you look at, again, his size, right? Yes, you can see Russell Wilson and Drees played at a similar size when they came in. But those guys are the outliers, more so the exception than the rule. My concern, I'm glad you brought in Kyler Murray, is because look at Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is similar size when they first came in, but Kyler Murray is way faster, like way more athletic. And yet still, guys, what's the one thing that's happened in Kyler Murray's tenure other than the fact that he's childish? He's missed a ton of games, especially towards the back end of the season. So as much as Kyler Murray has been able to escape defenses, he has not been able to withstand the pressure, like Don said, of getting chased down by 300-pound linemen. And I'm concerned that that is going to be the same for a less mobile Kyler Murray and Bryce Young. Mind you, I will say this, right? Bryce Young is a lot better in the pocket. His pocket presence is great. Anticipation is great. Ability to process information, as we found out, is extremely great. But you're going to have to see over linemen, and they're going to have to move the pocket for you. And I'm extremely concerned when they move the pocket for you, what is going to happen when you get outside of it. I think he's the best quarterback, but that size has to be a concern. Go ahead, G.
I feel like some of those quarterback injuries are so overblown. Like, when you talk about Kyler Murray, let's look at his last three major injuries: non-contact ACL, had a groin injury, and then some guy fell on his ankle in the pocket, I think in the Packers game. Like, that has nothing to do with what his size is. Like, it's just the NFL. If it's so So if it was Big Ben, it just fell on his ankle the same way. He would have just got up.
But
Like,
the
you just
difference
never
is,
know.
did that ever happen? No, because maybe he's just bigger. He can withstand a 300-pound lineman.
It's luck, man. It's
all
luck
some
of
of
the
it
draw.
is.
It's
But
luck
what
of the
if
draw.
he can't see through a window and has to scramble and now pulls it, tears his ACL? Like, you're forgetting about all the little differences. We've never stood back in a pocket, man. Like, you don't know what's going down for a 5'10" to a 6'3" guy. You really don't. There's a difference.
Payton, you want to chime in quickly for something?
No, my question is to Don: is the problem the height or is the problem the weight?
It's a little bit of
Because
both. If I told you, hey, Doug Flutie, Heisman Trophy winner, was 5'10", 180, what did we always hear about why he never got a shot? He's too small. So what's the difference here? Like, what is the difference? They're both Heisman Trophy winners.
It's a different game.
Okay, great.
Back when Doug Flutie played, nobody would ever put a quarterback that wasn't 6'4",
Great. And now you have 300-pound linemen that can run 4.5s. That didn't happen in the early 80s.
Well, quick.
Yeah, but you also can't touch the quarterback.
You're still going to touch him, Payton. It doesn't matter. You're right. But you're telling me there's never going to be an illegal hit on Bryce Young? Come on. You're living in a fantasy land then.
I'm not. Listen, if it was up to me, I wouldn't even take a quarterback number 1 this year. I don't think any of them are worthy.
I love it.
Okay, but Bryce Young, yes, his only problem is the size. I believe if it's the weight issue, I believe that could be fixed. His frame is small. Don't get me wrong, but if he focused on it, yes, in the NFL with these trainers, you can bulk up a little bit. But the height, he's been playing at this height his whole life. And seeing over the offensive linemen and this and that, like JT said, he's getting hit by these guys that are going to go in the first round at Georgia. He's playing in the SEC. He's used to getting hit. And it's not a matter of your size because there's big dudes that are always hurt. Cam Newton was always freaking hurt, and he was humongous. It's about how do you handle getting hit. Tua, I don't believe Tua's problem in terms of injuries is his size. I believe it's that he doesn't know how to fall. He doesn't know how to go down. He doesn't know how to get tackled. You can almost learn how to avoid injury by learning how to get tackled. It sounds weird, but I truly, honestly,
I think we all agree with that because Tua has actually been trying to learn. So for cheesy segues, speaking of falling down, what we all thought was the consensus number 2 pick, CJ Stroud, is finally all of a sudden, like typical, I don't know if it's a thing for black quarterbacks, right up before the draft, there are some manufactured issues. So it seems like, so the first thing is apparently he didn't go to Manning's camp. I guess that's a huge red flag. And then he performed poorly on a cognitive test. So I'm going to start with Don because Don says this is the best quarterback in the draft.
Oh, that's not true. That's not what he thinks.
Oh,
Ask him who the real best quarterback is. Did you not do the show with me
Thursday night? And I said CJ Stroud.
Yeah. I've been listening to you talk about a different quarterback for months,
so
and now you want to change your tune.
Well,
I also said Anthony Richardson's a franchise quarterback.
Oh, I love it.
What kind of franchise quarterback is he?
You clearly are not concerned about CJ Stroud, but should we?
No. I mean, even the co-founder of that S2 cognitive test you were saying, he came out and said, take some of the scores, not just CJ Stroud, but take some of these scores that have been leaked with a grain of salt. Like, he basically said some of those are fake scores that you're hearing. Like, they're not true. So we don't know how true that 18th percentile is. Who knows? That may be Carolina's way of trying to be able to trade down and still get CJ Stroud. Like, you never know in the NFL. And NFL coaches always say, or they believe they can coach up a guy. And let me tell you again what you can't coach. You can't coach the height difference between 5'10" and 6'3", which is the difference between Bryce and CJ. So you can't coach up height. You can't coach up arm strength. You can't coach up being more athletic for the most part. Like, can a coach, teach someone to read defenses? If you have those good coaches, that's what a QB coach is paid to do in the NFL. Be able to help the quarterback read defenses, know the offense, and know which formation plays to get out of that are not good on a play and into the right one. So that can be taught to CJ Stroud. The other stuff that he has, those abilities, cannot be. And I think that's why there should be no concern. And I've told JT he should go number 1 overall, but that's why there should be no concern.
before we move on or get to others, I wanted to bring up a point, and I'm glad that you kind of jogged my memory. There's another reason I'm not overly concerned about Bryce Young. It's because the situation he's going to find himself in. Because if he does indeed go to Carolina, his coaches are Frank Wright, former NFL quarterback, Josh McCown, former NFL quarterback, and Jim Caldwell, a guy who taught high-scoring offenses. I don't have to tell you all about Peyton Manning and what he did in Indianapolis. So I think any concerns with Bryce Young will just be limited to his size. But I think in terms of organizational structure and coaching, he will be going to the best possible situation out there. Go ahead, Anton.
But Justin, just to finish the point then with what you said, according to JT, though, he needs to have a lot of elite talent around him to win. So, which he didn't have at Alabama. And I don't think Carolina has that. So you should be concerned.
But CJ Stroud did.
The same thing. He did the same thing. He played much better against Bama in the playoffs.
Hey, look. CJ Stroud had 4 to 5 generational talents at wide receiver. Didn't win a national championship.
He didn't have that same Bama defense at Ohio State. Come on, they got shredded twice by Michigan's offense.
This is your QB. This is your QB1. Yeah, like you said,
you saw what he did against Georgia. He almost single-handedly won that game.
He lost.
He played better than Bryce did in the title game.
He lost.
So then, JT, you have concerns about CJ Stroud then? Well,
I didn't say that. See, I can still give somebody props. I don't feel that I have any personal concerns about CJ Stroud. I think the nature of this question, why I think people have concerns about him, they're not related to anything that he can do on the field. They're not related to his size. I just think that they've pegged him as the guy that has the lowest ceiling out of these quarterbacks. And I think that's what he's falling into. It's like, does he run? Is he athletic? Does he have the strongest arm? Like, is he the biggest? Is he a physical freak? Like, that's what I think is going on with him. You know, if he were, running like a 4.5 and, running on all these games, I think, the hype on him would be a little bit higher and it wouldn't be this slide. It's just, he's in this class with these freakishly gifted guys. And like, are you as a GM in the top 3, are you excited about a guy who could be anywhere from like Dak Prescott to Kirk Cousins? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you know how these NFLs are. Like, they want the next Josh Allen. They want the next Patrick Mahomes. Like, they want the next freak to take them to a Super Bowl. And guys like Dak and Kirk Cousins, those aren't the guys you associate with that kind of ascension. And I think that's where scouts and, like talking pundits are placing CJ Stroud as in like the game manager category. Do I think it's fair? No, because I think he's talented. Like accuracy, he's got it. Like arm strength, it's enough. Athleticism, I know it's in there because I saw it in the Georgia game. It's just how the scouts feel about him. They just don't feel like the ceiling is high. And so I think that's where it's coming.
Further about you though, JD, we all forget in that Georgia game, the only reason Ohio State lost that is because a certain Marvin Harrison Jr. went down. Because if he stays up, then we're talking about a completely different situation. And Georgia is not back-to-back defending national championships, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Payton, do you, like these pundits, have concerns over CJ Stroud, or are these made-up issues?
I mean, the thing with CJ Stroud, I don't really care about the stupid S2 examination, bro. That's you could just crumple that up and throw it in the freaking garbage. I don't care about anybody who did good. I don't care about anybody who did bad on that. Just like the Wonderlic score, that was all just stupid garbage. I didn't like that at all. If at the end of the day, if you could play football, bro, you could play football. I don't care what your test says, bro. Like, I really don't. I don't care. I know CJ Stroud can play. Now, I really agree with JT here, and that's if I'm a GM and I'm in the top 5, I've been saying this for a while, literally ever since I've started my podcast. My new saying is that the average quarterback is the backup quarterback in the NFL nowadays. You go for high ceilings. And CJ Stroud, he is really good, and he's going to be a career starter in the NFL. And I saw an it factor in him against Georgia, which is why I still think he's worthy of a top 5 pick in the draft. I still think he's second to Bryce Young, maybe even first. But I just don't see anything out of him in terms of arm strength. Yes, he's above average accuracy, that's for sure. I'd probably say much more than above average accuracy, but he doesn't have an insane arm. He doesn't do anything that's like extremely out of this world. And some of these guys in this draft class, like Anthony Richardson, I mean, the athleticism's off the charts. He has a huge arm, and when you see these pro days in the combine, it gets these guys, GMs, really excited. And when you have a guy like CJ Stroud who just does all the right things, he kind of gets swept under the rug sometimes.
So I actually disagree with you and JT for a different point, because I think what's happening with CJ Stroud is a recent phenomenon where we are in lying season. And I'll explain to you what I mean. I think these GMs actually like CJ Stroud. And what you're seeing happen is intentional sabotage, where they're seeing things, hoping that they can get him to fall so they can land him at a spot where they don't have to give up draft capital. Now, I know Neil is behind the mic saying, oh, Justin and his conspiracy theories. Hold on just a second, though. Got some evidence to back up what I'm saying. You remember when all of us thought at one point that Josh Allen was the best quarterback in the draft prior to the draft? And all of a sudden, then there were concerns about his accuracy, sustainability, not playing at a high level. And then we saw Baker Mayfield get the number 1 overall pick. And what happened, guys? Josh Allen slid a bit. Buffalo all of a sudden knew they had the ability to move up and grab Josh Allen. Now Neil is behind there saying, well, that's just one scenario. That's not a trend it makes. Hold on, guys. Justin Fields. We all kind of thought Justin Fields was the second best quarterback in that draft behind Trevor Lawrence. There are some who may have even pegged him to be better than Trevor Lawrence. And then all of a sudden, leading up to the draft, it was he isn't intelligent enough, or this epilepsy issue, and all of a sudden he started to fall. And then what did we see happen, guys? Chicago all of a sudden moves up, grabs him at number 15. Neil is saying, oh, that's just 2 cases. Hold my beer, Neil. I have more. We all knew, or at least we felt, that Deshaun Watson was the best quarterback in his class. Proves that he was at least the second best. And then what happens? There's talk about his arm strength and, limited mobility, blah, 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 blah. And then he falls. And all of a sudden, Houston knows, hey, let's move up a bit and catch our guy. Gentlemen, I think this is no different. It is laying season. Everyone knows that CJ Stroud is good. Like, if you watch the tape, there's nothing you can sit down and say against CJ Stroud. And I have a friend that says this, I'm Neil's best man, who says this one line. The best indicator of future performance is past performance. And when I look, I see a guy who had 85 touchdowns, just 12 interceptions, and a career completion percentage of 69%. There is no holes in CJ Stroud's game. People are picking at nonsense. Like you said, the co-owner himself said some of these leaks are not even true. Where did they come from? Why are we talking about a Manning count that he missed? Like, who cares about that? You know who cares? The team below who does not want to trade up all of that draft capital to get their quarterback. Don't believe what you hear. These GMs know CJ Stroud is at the worst the second best quarterback in his class. All they're doing is forcing him down to a spot where they're comfortable to trade up to get him and not have to spend too much draft capital. But Guy, go ahead.
Or I mean, you could argue it the other way. I feel like in those examples that you gave, I look at it as more of they're just not comfortable investing their time, their future as being employed by a team to a black quarterback that they don't think is special. Like, that's how I look at it. Because you look at Deshaun Watson, like, it was obvious, like, he was QB1, but it's like, was he small? Yeah, but I was like, I would have definitely taken him over Mr. Trubisky. But it's like, that's how NFL GMs are. Like, if you're not special and you're a black quarterback, the hype on you just isn't as high. And I think that's what happened. Like, he had all the hype going into the combine, then they saw the real freaks perform, and it's like, okay, like, we like these guys a little bit more. Like, that's why Bryce Young was smart. He didn't perform because he knew, like, he had no chance of beating these guys, like, in a shorts competition. So I think the same thing is happening to CJ Stroud.
Well, speaking of moving up and being in a shorts competition, and I will leave that joke out the side. No, Arizona is sitting at 3 with no need to pick a quarterback, but multiple teams do want one. Payton, Should the Cardinals trade out of that spot? And if they do, who should be the team looking to get into that number 3 overall pick?
Well, I feel like the team that should be looking to get in should definitely be the Raiders. I know that there was rumors that they tried to trade up to 1, and now they're apparently going to sit at 7. I would say try to be aggressive because
You're not comfortable with Jimmy
if
Garoppolo as your starter. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Why should they be? And I love Jimmy G. Listen, you don't have to talk me into Jimmy G. I love him, but he really has never been on the field consistently. That's been his biggest issue. Biggest issue hasn't been winning games. It's been you have to play in games to win them. So he's been on the sidelines way too much. So you really don't know what's going to happen with Jimmy G. You don't know if he's your future. I would say if you see a guy, I would say for any team, you don't draft a guy, especially a quarterback, unless you're 100% sure. If you're 99% sure in a guy, you wait till next year. And if there's a team out there that is 100% certain, they should trade up to Arizona. But should Arizona trade back? I feel like they should, only if Houston decides to go with Will Anderson at 2. But if Will Anderson goes to 3, I say take him. He's the best player on the board, and I believe he's going to go in and produce day 1 in the NFL. So I'd say Houston goes quarterback, take Will Anderson. Houston doesn't go quarterback, trade back.
What he said, I actually agree. Don, same thing. Should Arizona trade back, and if so, with who?
I agree with Payton. They should only trade back if they still feel like they can get Will Anderson based on where they would drop. So even if the Texans take a quarterback, if they can fall to 5 or 6 or 7, knowing that maybe the number 3 team takes a quarterback, maybe Indianapolis, Seattle take a quarterback, or Seattle takes Jalen Carter or whatever, and they can drop to 6 or 7 where the Raiders are and still get Will Anderson, then absolutely drop back. But your guy has to be Will Anderson. So if you're worried that Seattle may take him, if you drop to like number 6 or 7, or Detroit may take him, then don't trade back. The team that should trade up, I think, it's got to be the Tennessee Titans. I mean, Tannehill's on a 1-year deal at this point. He's got 1 year left. Henry is getting old. The Titans got some young pieces. JT loves Treylon Burks. He loves their tight end, and I agree with him.
Bro, don't turn this into a dynasty fantasy show, man. I know what you're trying to do, man.
In all honesty,
focus strictly on the NFL draft.
Honesty,
don't do this.
In all honesty, they have some young, skilled positions, and Vrabel's always going to have a tough-nosed defense and an offensive line, right? They missed on Malik Willis. It's never too late to just cut bait on knowing that, you know what? We don't have a franchise QB in the organization. We think we can get there at number 3, and we believe there's a franchise quarterback there that we can actually go with and feel comfortable with, then make the move. And the last little note is the new Cardinals GM is Monty Osenfort, who spent 3 seasons as the Titans director of player personnel. So there's that connection that they could get it done, because that should hopefully make it easier to, I'm not saying that they would make a steal at that spot in terms of the trade, but at least be able to facilitate and have that open dialogue.
No, relationships get things done. That's how the world works. And to your point about the Titans, the only Titans fan I know, Brian Bolster, actually doesn't want the Titans to take a quarterback in this draft because he doesn't like any of them. He thinks they should wait and get Caleb Williams next year.
And that's fine, but with Mike Vrabel, you're never going to have the worst record. It's like Tomlin. The Steelers, no matter who's at quarter, we had Duck Hodges for half a season. Like, they're never, like, certain coaches will never allow that to happen. Vrabel's one of them. And the other, the other part to it is Tennessee either needs to win or make a splash to be able to keep that fan base. Like, that's not one of the, it's not a Steelers, a Packers type of organization. Like, they need to make a splash, because right now where they're at, they may be the worst team in the division, depending on, what happens with the Texans.
Same question, Jimmy. Should Arizona stand pat? And if they don't, Who do they trade with?
Hell yeah, they should stand pat because, like Payton said, Will Anderson is the best player in this draft. Like, that's a Hall of Fame type talent. Like I said it before, I think we're looking at the next Von Miller. Like, I think he's that special. Anytime you can lead college football all 3 years in pressures and everyone knows it's coming, like, you're that guy. I think it should be Will Anderson a bust for them, but it's going to be tricky. So you want to talk about conspiracy theories? I think the Texans are going to mess up this draft, and I think they're going to take a quarterback at number 2 that's going to set off a chain reaction. I think Will Levis is going number 2. I can see it happening. And I think him going number 2 will determine who wants to move up. Like, you'll find out if Levis goes number 2, you'll find out how much, because Arizona's phone should be blowing up at that point. But I think they're going to end up picking him at 3, Will Anderson, no matter what happens. I don't think people are anxious to move up to this number 3 spot. Is because I think it's Bryce Young, and then the other ones are just like, if they fall to us and we get a good deal, we'll take them. Like, I don't think that they're in love with all these guys enough to give up that draft capital to move up to get them.
It's going to be a very boring segment because everything you all said, I echo. Like, I personally would not move out of the spot because the best player in the draft is likely going to be available at number 3 unless Houston grabs him, and that's Will Anderson. Like, when you're getting comparisons to Von Miller, you are a certainty at a premium position in edge rusher. Like, you don't pass up on that talent, especially when you are a depleted defense in Arizona. Like, this is too easy. Don't move out the pit. Draft Will Anderson and tell teams like Washington and Tennessee, go trade somewhere else to get what you're looking for. This is a favorite part of my show now. This is what I've been waiting for. So, Payton, are you ready? We've talked about some prospects, but none of these prospects, with the exception of probably Will Anderson, are really bulletproof. Which of these high-level prospects have the biggest red flags?
So for me, it's down to Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, just because there's going to be 2 teams that are going to take him really high, and they both have big problems. I'm going to go with Will Levis because for some reason, I just have more faith in Anthony Richardson than I do in Will Levis, mainly because Will Levis just reminds me of Mitch Trubisky, and I just don't see that playing out in the NFL. Yes, he has a bigger arm, but at the end of the day, he has been belittled by every big moment ever in his college career. There was talk that Kentucky could be a potential like dark horse to make the playoffs last year, and they sucked. They lost to Vanderbilt. Dude, Vanderbilt hadn't won an SEC game since like 2016, and they lost with Will Levis playing the entire game. He didn't throw for 200 yards in that game. That's a red flag. I don't care about any physical trait that you could tell me about a guy. If he is losing games that he should be winning and playing well in, that's a red flag. And that's the biggest red flag of all. That just means that you can't rise to the occasion and you can't come up big when your team needs you.
And yet, Will Levis outplayed the other guy with the red flags in Anthony Richardson.
Yes, he did.
JD, same question. The guy with the most red flags for you.
How much time we got, man?
Well, before we continue, though, let me list some of them. We've had Jalen Carter's off-season issues or off-field issues with the car crash and the weight at his pro day and the scouting combine. The sides of Nolan Smith and the aforementioned Bryce Young, and then we get to the inexperience of Anthony Richardson and Will Levis's apparently not good tools, whatever you want to call it. Take it away, JD.
So I'm a cheat. I love these questions, so I might give you more than one, but I'll be quick. Payton, I agree with you. The biggest indictment on Will Levis is he couldn't beat out the quarterback at Penn State, who is not even going to be in the XFL. So that's a red flag to me. But if I have to pick 2 guys, really, that
you're only
really
supposed
stick out
to
to me
pick
red flags.
one. It's not your show.
Mind your business. I was
Justin,
not talking to you.
You got to rein in.
I know. I wasn't talking to you.
Was
Wasn't talking to you. Wasn't even talking to you.
Yes,
Just
talking to us 3.
Hey, look. If you're not 5'8", you can't talk to me right now.
No,
short people be quiet. 5'10", my ass. I'm not even supposed to curse on this show.
I'm 5'8", then you're under 6 foot.
Oh, that's not true. I haven't been under 6 foot since I was like 15, man. Come on.
And man,
Give
where
me
did you
your
go
two
wrong
pairs,
in your
JD.
athletic,
Hey, look, you can pull up on me at any court you want to. You already know how it's
LA
going to end.
Fitness
I
Gym
don't want
Hero
to
right
send you
here.
home embarrassed
LA Fitness
again.
Gym Hero, JT.
Exactly, man. So two guys that stand out to me. One is Luke. I don't get it, man. Like I get it. He looks like Thor. He's a freak, man. Like he wins the gym award. Like he's in there putting up all the weights, but it just doesn't make sense to me how a guy who was never a full-time starter at Iowa, I think I was reading somewhere he only played 50 or more snaps in one career game. Like, how is this guy going to be a top 10, top 12 pick just automatically just based on the way he looks? Like, last time I checked, Iowa, they didn't score that many points on offense. Like, why is he on the sideline so much? Like, that's just a big red flag to me. Like, you weren't good enough to get on the field when the defense actually had to play a lot of snaps. Like, and the production just didn't match. So he's a big red flag to me. And then the other one, even though I want to be wrong about Anthony Richardson, because I want to see a guy that gifted just succeed, man. Because I think if Richardson makes it, that's going to be good for a lot of quarterbacks going forward that come into the league. But I'm worried about him. And we talked about this on our show, and I'm going to read this off again. This is the thing about Anthony Richardson that bothers me, and I can't shake it. Completion percentage on short passes in his career. So that's 0 to 10 yards. His season last year with these passes, he was 1,374 out of 1,426 quarterback seasons since 2015. So that's how bad he was at just throwing short passes last year. That put him in the third percentile of all time since they started tracking this stat. So why is that important? Because short area accuracy is the most stable form of accuracy that is translatable to the NFL. So basically, if you are really good at this type of pass, you have a good shot. That's a good mark against you to be good in the NFL. Like, he's all-time. Look at all the charts. And I told Don this before. You know who's down there with him as like a guy that will be taken in the first 2 rounds that is this bad at this type of accuracy? Christian Hackenberg. Like, that's how bad this level is of short area accuracy. And I'm like, how the hell can you not throw the ball 10 yards? Like, that's a screen pass. Like, that should be automatic. And Anthony Richardson just can't do that. So what that tells me is he struggles with the layups. Like, I can't have that. Like, you can run 4-3, you can throw it into the Jumbotron, but if you can't throw it into the flat in the NFL, especially in today where it's short passing game, everything's yard after catch, like, I'm really worried about that. And that stat says that his game is not translating to the NFL. So that's the biggest red flag to me.
But that so you get red-green colorblind real quick when you see him throw that thing into the Jumbotron, man. That's it. I really wish he would have stayed another year, because I think if Anthony Richardson stayed another year, there's a good chance we're talking about him as the number 1 pick next year.
And to talk about that, JT,
it'll be interesting for sure.
They talked about his mechanics because they say they on those passes that require touch. Problem is he doesn't have it. He required, like, everything is that big arm, and he doesn't know when to take it off. And they were talking about also his foot placement and his left foot placement. I'll get into that because I have a lot to say. Don, who's the guy with the most red flags for you in terms of top prospects?
Someone we haven't talked about, but that keeps climbing the board for some reason, and it's Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Like, he had 7 sacks last year in 21, meaning, and then 7 sacks this actual past year in 22. Like, it's not a lot of sacks. And he keeps climbing the board, and that's all I ever read is his length and that he's 6'6". And it's like, all right, that's great. There's a lot of guys that have gone through the draft that have been like that and that have produced more sacks than him, and they're not going top 5. I mean, you see some of these mock drafts, they've got him going number 3 to Arizona. Like, I'm wondering, either do they know something we don't know, or is this, this person doing the mock draft just way out there and trying to get, some clickbait? But you see it, though. He's being in the top 10 in every mock draft. And it's like, wait, he couldn't hack it at A&M, had to go to Texas Tech to play in the Big 12. and then gets 7 sacks in 21 and then 7 in 22. And, you look at all these different like subscriptions and programs, and they have something called Saxier that does projections based on these type of guys. They have him as the 5th overall edge rusher in this draft. So they don't even have him 1 or 2. And then they compare him, his historical prospects are Deion Jordan and Jamal Reynolds. And I know that gives JT some PTSD hearing Deion Jordan.
I know, Dolphins and FSU.
Like a lot of these teams, I think, are going to end up with the next Deion Jordan because it's all based on, the upside of what Payton and JT were saying with the quarterbacks. Like all these people that are being drafted now or that are drafting or in those roles, they're drafting for upside. And I feel like that's what they're doing with Tyree Wilson. But you can't do that when you've got Will Anderson out there and you've got some of these other edge rushers that have produced. So he's had in 35 career games, he's had only a total of 17 sacks. That is not good enough. What is it about him that he's going so high? And it's basically his physical abilities, but we see that all the time. That does not equate all the time to the NFL because you're facing tackles that are full-grown men and they know how to get their hands on you. And once they do, you're done. So I don't care if he's 6'6" and has long arms. Can he rush? Has he been productive? And he hasn't. So you can't do that in the Big 12. How are you going to do that in the NFL? I mean, I don't get. That's why the red flag is for me is that he just keeps going up, and that's all people talk about are his physical abilities, meaning his height and his length. That's not enough for me to go top 3, top 5, top 10.
I agree with you, Don.
And that's the exact reason I have a huge red flag as Anthony Richardson. Everything you talk about with this kid is his physical abilities. And we have noted with all these quarterbacks, I know quarterbacks now come in different shapes, sizes, even colors. But the one thing I do know, when you look through all these Hall of Fame quarterbacks, what do we talk about? We talk about their ability to process information quickly, the ability to be accurate, to protect the football. None of these things are Anthony Richardson. Again, I see the best indicator of future success is the best indicator of future performance is past performance. And let's look at Anthony Richardson's past performance. I won't even go into the percentage on those short swing passes or, like JT talked about. Overall, career-wise, this man has a 55 completion percentage, 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions in 13 starts. Just 13 starts. And we expect this guy to perform at the very next level because he has a cannon of an arm where he can run 4.3 and a 40. When has this translated into an NFL Hall of Fame quarterback? Far less a franchise one. These things do not translate. There is nothing that tells me right now that Anthony Richardson should go in the first round. He said it. There's absolutely nothing. We're looking at this kid and seeing all of his tools and projecting. But what about his actual quarterback play tells you this is a franchise quarterback? And there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing you can point at. You can't point towards his accuracy. You can't point towards any victories. Payton talked about how bad Will Levis lost games. Will Levis beat Anthony Richardson. And Will Levis looked better than Anthony Richardson in the matchup that they had. That is how bad Anthony Richardson was. And then at least Will Levis has starts. Anthony Richardson has 13. And we are projecting this guy as the second best quarterback. Hey, tell me why, Payton, why?
Because listen, I'm not the Anthony Richardson defender.
I'll be the defender.
It came down to two people for me. It was Will Levis and Anthony Richardson.
I'll be the defender.
He has the physical traits of a guy like Cam Newton that was a number 1 overall pick. But I 100% agree. I wouldn't even touch him in the first round. I don't rush for quarterbacks. That's not my mentality. But if there's a team out there that is 100% convinced, yes, our coaching staff can turn him into what he can be, then they have to go get him. And I don't care if it's a top 5 pick.
It would have to be
Payton jaded on quarterbacks.
Go ahead, Don, because I thought it was Payton that was the Anthony Richardson defender. Go ahead, Don. Please defend it, please.
Well, there's a couple things. When you're talking about red flags, the red flag to you is just simply that you don't think he's good enough. And that's fine if you think that way. But when you think about red flags, it's more about, for him, he has that high ceiling, right? And we've talked about it. If you are a team that can wait, because I'm not gonna lie about it, he does need a year, maybe two, to be behind and learn the system. Not three, maybe two, but probably at least one. So if you have that time, Seattle Seahawks, you have that time that he can sit behind Geno 1 or 2 years, then you don't miss a beat when he comes in because he has all that talent. And the red flag part is, we've talked about, he can't hit the short pass. What about the touch? And I don't know, Justin, you made up all this other stuff of why he's the worst quarterback ever, I feel like. But if you're an NFL coaching staff, and all coaches and all coaching staffs believe this, they can coach up a guy. So if you have this guy that has all of these talents that we have never really seen in any quarterback, and it's all in one because he still scored in that S2, whatever credit you want to give it to, however much credence, he still scored, I think, like 79 or 80th percentile. So he is the complete package when you look at all the measurables. So the fact that he can't hit a 10-yard pass as a QB coach, as a whole system, if you can't figure out a way to help this guy be accurate on a 10-yard pass, then why are you making millions as a coach in the NFL? I don't know. So the red flag is maybe more, what about the Florida Gators? Like, where's that red flag? They had to get rid of a coach, and they had this guy. So, like, maybe it's not all on this kid. Maybe it is on some of those coaches at Florida, and he's just a product of the way that program is right now. And that's not a shot at Florida. That's to defend this guy that everyone's now dogging. And it's like, hey, the quarterback position, I disagree with you, Payton. If you think you have a franchise quarterback, you go get him. And if Seattle feels like this is our guy and he can wait, you go get him at 5. I don't care if you're passing up a Hall of Fame left tackle. If you believe that this is your guy, that is the one position. If you truly believe it, whether it turns out to be true or not, if you believe he's the franchise quarterback, you go get him. That's why with Dave Gettleman, I'll never knock him for the Daniel Jones. My only critique is I didn't think he was the guy. I wouldn't have done it, but if you felt that at number 6 as a quarterback, then do it.
I will just say this. If you are correct, then Carolina should be drafting him because they do have the coaching in place. As I said, you have Jim Caldwell, you have Frank Wright, and you have Josh McCown.
I will say this, even though JT's gonna say I'm talking on both sides of my mouth. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are great quarterbacks. Like there's no knocking them, even though I've kind of talked about Bryce's size, but I believe that those guys are talented. So if you think that's the one for you, meaning if Carolina just feels like, you know what, Bryce is a little bit more ready now, but can still be a Pro Bowler, then go get him. You don't need to take Richardson if Bryce fits more of what you want.
Fair enough. We're going to get to the boring part now, the really boring part that I should not have put in the show. The safe pick. JT, in your estimation, who is indeed the safest pick in this draft, the can't miss, the one that is basically bulletproof?
Hey, man, I think he's convinced me. It's got to be Anthony.
This is what I got to deal with.
If we're looking at the
question.
No, I'm serious. I had numbers, but throw that shit out. If he's the next Justin Herbert, like my guy says right here, then Anthony Richards is bulletproof. He's Teflon Don, man. But we know that's not true. But the obvious answer is Will Anderson. Like that is the safest pick. Like anybody who makes that pick, like you're gonna keep your job.
So I could basically say we're gonna go around the board and say Will Anderson, right, Payton?
Yeah, but I'm gonna say somebody else just because for funsies. Bijan Robinson, first round running backs, even like rookie running backs, first year, they come in fresh legs. Typically they come and produce. We saw Kenneth Walker last year. And, I think this guy, he's going to be great for whoever gets him. I don't know where he's going to go because it's really hard to tell with running backs now. I've seen mocks with him going as high as 8 to Atlanta, which I think would be an interesting pick, but it would pay off for them. I think he's going to come in, and much like Will Anderson, he's going to produce from day one.
Okay, Don, let's make it interesting. Somebody not named Will Anderson.
Yep, it's Jackson Smith-Njigba. Listen, you can shake your head, JT, but it's true. He's the best receiver.
We're not doing
this today.
He's the best receiver in this draft.
We're not doing this.
You could talk about the hamstring, but that's fine. He's had a year for that to heal. This isn't a torn ACL or an Achilles. Like, it's a hamstring, people. Relax. He'll be fine. That's not a red flag. He's the best receiver in this draft. And
you do know hamstring injuries, like, they reoccur. Like once you have them, like they kind of stick with
State
you.
Has been saying this, that he can be as good, if not better, than Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. So he's the best receiver in this draft. He's the safe pick, because the other reason why he's the safe pick, I don't know who you're going to pick, Justin, but I agree with JT. I agree with Payton. Both of those guys are the safest picks too, because quarterback, cornerback, and offensive lineman, in particular offensive tackle, those are the riskiest positions to draft. You never know what it's going to. You could have the 5 tools, all the tools as a cornerback. You get to the NFL and you're toast. In 2 years, like Jeff Okudah, you're being traded. You're being taken out by your own team. Quarterback, corner, and offensive lineman, in particular offensive tackle, the riskiest. So running back, great pick, Payton. JT with the edge rusher, Will Anderson, great pick. And receiver, we see it all the time. Guys like Jamar Chase come in, light up the league. Jackson Smith-Njigba, if you take him and he doesn't pan out, hey, it doesn't matter, because you made the right move. That's why it's a safe pick.
I think we all agree Will Anderson really is bulletproof, so that's not going to go over that. Like, I'm just going to take the safety out of Alabama. I hope that's one of the picks that Green Bay is targeting at number 13 to replace the outgoing Adrian Amos. So I'd go there. Like, Brambach is, for me, outside of Will Anderson, the safety. Like, if you're going to take a safety, and that's kind of like safeties, like running backs, are starting to be devalued in the first round. But it kind of feel like a defensive back in the Alabama system. Like, you cannot go wrong taking somebody out of a defensive backfield in Alabama. Like, when have you ever missed at that position in Alabama? Like, never. So Will Anderson, I think we're going to get Von Miller part 2. Like, everyone is saying it. I saw the team. Like, that's just too easy.
Hey, real quick, Justin, are you not worried about any injuries? We see it all the time with Alabama players. How is this no different? He went back an extra year and got abused probably by Saban in those hard practices.
No, not really, because, like, again, the best indicator for future performance is past performance. And I stay away from easily injured players. He doesn't have a huge injury history. So chances tell me, if you didn't get injured a lot in the SEC and those rigorous Alabama practices, as you mentioned, then the chances are you're likely not going to get injured, or the chances are very low. So I'm going to, like those players who are constantly injured, or like Tua Tagovailoa, this should not have come as a surprise to anyone. He had serious injuries in high school. He had serious injuries at Alabama, not just one. So, like, you saw past performance kind of leads to future performance. So, I think Brambach is a safe pick, or anybody Alabama defensive minded is a safe pick, or position player not named quarterback. I'm going to transition slightly, though, away from draft prospects into people who are already in the NFL but could be on the move. I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to get moved on the first night of the NFL draft, but Packers and Jets had other ideas because the Packers wanted that number 13 overall pick. So, JT, Aaron Rodgers is gone now. Which veteran player do you see moving on draft night? Specifically, the first night of the draft.
If I had to bet on somebody, I would say Derrick Henry. I just keep hearing too much stuff about him not coming back, and I think his skill set is still very valuable, especially the teams that are in win now mode. So he could be a guy where, like, I don't think his deal is that hard to move. Like, you don't have to give up much to get a running back, especially one with his type of mileage. So I think if anybody's going to move, it's
To
probably going to
who
be him.
and for what type of compensation? Come on, JD. This is not your average sports show. You don't get to throw nonsense like that.
Well, if it's the Eagles, then I mean I can't even say because Roseman's like a high level fleecer, so it could be they can get Derrick Henry for like a 7th round pick in 5 years from now. So if it's the Eagles, it could be anything. If it's the Falcons, maybe like a 3rd rounder. So I think those are probably the 2 teams that make a move from because I agree with Payton. I keep hearing that the Falcons are all in on Bijan, but I mean if you don't want to spend a 1st round pick on him, just go get Derrick Henry for a 3rd. Like you've already worked with him, Arthur Smith. You basically unleashed him when you were in Tennessee, so you know what the guy can do. I'd give up a 3rd round.
Don't make the same mistake, Payton. Who is moving for what kind of compensation and to where?
2 guys come to mind. DeAndre Hopkins is one. But I don't see Arizona having a reason to trade up unless someone makes a huge leap to number 3. But I also am thinking about Dalvin Cook. I think that if there's a quarterback that falls into the mid-first, like let's say Richardson slides round 15, 16, I would say that Minnesota makes a move up. Minnesota has that time to develop Anthony Richardson. He can sit there and be behind Kirk Cousins, and they'll be extremely average forever until he gets his chance to play. They have the time to be able to nurture a young quarterback. So I'd say if they were able to package Dalvin Cook in a deal to trade up, I wouldn't be totally shocked if that was something that they were exploring.
I don't think they have a lot of time though, because if memory serves me correct, Kirk Cousins only has 1 year left on his deal, right? So, but
Didn't they give him an extension?
Did they? Get Neil or Marsh in the background.
Oh wait, no, they didn't. I'm sorry. No, I remember they did not. Yeah,
So,
you're right.
They have 1 year, but I kind of like that. Don, what do you got for me?
I guess I'll go a little bit more risky. I don't know if it actually does happen, but I think it would be something that would be good for the draft and make it interesting. I think it's been quiet over in LA, and I think maybe Austin Eckler could get moved where, draft night comes, someone's like, hey, we're out of the draft right now. Let's make a deal. And who knows what can happen, whether that's the Chargers moving up or getting a good pick next year, whatever it may be. I still don't know if he's moved just because he even said he may just play out the 1 year. But maybe that actually gives value to him in terms of being traded because he's willing to play on that 1 year deal and maybe negotiate with the team. So I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. That's kind of the big trade. And he's in his prime at 28. He's probably got 2 more good years at the running back spot. So if you're going to make a move for a running back, he'd be the guy to do it for.
Damn, you stole my spot. Like I was going to say Austin Eckler because they did not give him a new contract. They didn't extend him. And I feel like the Chargers, because of the fall of running backs, have a legit shot of staying put and landing Bijan Robinson. And if that's the case, like that's perfect. Like you have, arguably, I can see Robinson coming in and immediately actually being better than Austin Eckler straight off the bat. Because like there are people comparing this kid to LaDainian Tomlinson, like straight off the bat. And as Payton mentioned,
Marshawn Lynch, he's Marshawn Lynch 2.0.
You gotta stop doing this.
That's what he is. That's what he is. He's Marshawn Lynch 2.0. You think Marshawn Lynch is worth a 1st round pick? Go take Bijan Robinson.
I mean,
and as Payton said, running backs. If there are 2 positions where these players come NFL ready and hit on the ground running, it's running backs and offensive linemen. And if the Chargers can sit down and upgrade Austin Eckler without having to pay and sit at their position, like that is a like you're like what do you call it in baseball, like triple crown. Don't you upgrade? Don't have to pay at the position, and they don't have to move up. Like how great was that? So I suspect Austin Eckler's on the move. I know I made the rules about having to go where and what compensation, but I made the rules. I don't have to follow them. I just, it's my show. Go ahead, JD. You wanted to chime in?
No, just my guy's a hater, man. Like how you got so much faith in Anthony Richardson, who couldn't even, toss a ball that somebody's sitting next to him, but Bijan Robinson is going to be this horrible running back. Like,
I didn't say
you gotta have
Marshawn Lynch is a horrible running back.
But that's how you're making it seem like, oh, bro, drafted Marshawn Lynch. How dare you?
I see people taking Bijan Robinson in mock drafts in the top 10. Come on, like let's pump the brakes here. He's not Marshall Faulk. Come on,
bro. He's an elite talent. Did you watch any Texas games?
Oh, the games all they lost, but hey, he probably had no talent around him because guys that have no talent around them don't win.
Apparently, guys that do lose too. So I mean, there's CJ Stroud, number one. CJ Stroud for president. There you go.
He had no defense like Bryce Young did in Alabama. They couldn't stop Michigan.
Oh my gosh.
Guys, I know I didn't put this on the script, but let's get out of here quickly. Just chime in, like short sentence. What's the big surprise of the draft that you're looking for or you expect? Payton.
Minnesota trades up for a quarterback.
JD?
Will Levis at number 2. Vegas says it's going to happen.
Wow. Don.
Ooh, it's a tough one. I mean, so many things. I guess at the end of the day, Anthony Richardson going number 5 to the Seahawks.
I like it. So before we get out of here, please, JT and the Don, tell the kind folks how to find you and what you got coming up next. And a big shout out to the people at Give Us a Shot Network.
Yep. JT and the Don, you can find us on all the major platforms and also on social media at JT and the Don, in particular Instagram and TikTok. And we're now part of Give Us a Shot Network, which you can go ahead and subscribe to on YouTube.
TikTok, cut it out. Like, cut it out.
Hey, come on, man. You know better than this, man. We stay up with the trends.
We young at heart, man. Come on.
We young at heart, bro.
Payton thinks that we've forgotten that he's ghosted us. Payton, we are extended an offer to Payton to join the team full time. But still, Payton, we haven't forgotten you. Where are you now?
I'm serious. If I ever got a consistent work schedule, I would do it. Because every time I come on here, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I love this. Like, I don't know why I ever had to stop. But if I ever got a consistent work schedule, you will see me on This Just In permanently every week. But
go ahead. Sorry, Payton.
What was that? No, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate every single time I get to come on. JT and the Don. I always love working with you guys. Make sure to go check them out and Give Us a Shot Network. And Justin and everyone here at This Just In, thank you guys so much.
We're trying to nab him before Give Us a Shot Network comes to steal him. That's what we're trying to do. Because I see that they sent both JT and the Don to get him. Like, oh, see these mofos. Because they're never on here at the same time. And all of a sudden, no, both JT and the Don. I was like, oh.
Suge Knight sent us, man. Suge Knight sent us. We just doing what we were paid to do.
JT did say Payton was going to be on. I was like, all right, it's time to come on. It's time to come back on.
You see, they're coming to poach, but Neil is working an off-season deal. But honestly, guys, Give Us a Shot Network, awesome job that they're doing, and they really have reloaded. So please, please, please hit subscribe, like everything that they're doing, especially these two guys. I love working with JT and the Don. And when you are done, go in the chat and beg Payton to come on, #ThisJustIn. When you're done with that, like, subscribe, follow us everywhere. We are every single Monday night right here on YouTube, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Not next week because Neil has to go on vacation. Who gave Neil vacation anyway? I don't know. Gotta talk to HR about this. But indeed, yes, every Monday night except next week, we're on 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for our short form content. You can hit us up on Twitter. You can hit us up on Facebook. You can hit us up on my favorite app, Instagram. That's #ThisJustIn. If you are not finding us, you are not looking hard enough. So for JT, for Dawn, and Payton, I am indeed the Justin of #ThisJustIn signing out, and we will see you 2 Mondays from now.
I know that after tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars. No.
Come take a look at my dream world.
Tonight, you don't have to look up at the stars.
Yeah, if you wanna come get it, then come for it. I'm so clean, my kick's nice, I'm Chuck Norris. Minute made the beat bounce, had to jump on it. Run for it, run, Gump Forrest Gump like hollow pumps, you gotta jump. No trouble, no double, I got a stun. You don't have to look up at the stars. Make one wish, you're looking at a star. Swag so fresh, you can put it in the jar. And the way I change gear, you can put me in the car. I remember when